Okay, if we could rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Jason, is this, Sean, is this on? All right. Will she come to me? Come here, baby. All right, so, you're wondering why we have a dog. Well, it's not just a dog. It's a Dachshund. It's not just a Dachshund. It's the best Dachshund in the town of Highlands and the village of Highland Falls. It came in first place out of 12.
Oh, wow.
Look at that guy. And everyone who knows me knows how much I love dogs. That's all right. And so we want to, the village wants to give you this first place blue ribbon for the best Dachshund.
The fastest Dachshund.
The best Dachshund for many reasons. Come here, hon. Now you two are, what's your name?
My name's Chasteline.
Chasteline. Beautiful.
This is Heidi.
Heidi.
Okay. And you're the trainer. Both of you are the trainers, correct?
Yeah.
What grade are you in?
7.
7. Third. Okay. And who is this lady?
Ruby.
No, not this lady, this lady.
Denise.
Okay, that's Denise. So here, we want to give you this first place ribbon for Ruby. Look at that dog, it's beautiful. No wonder it won. I'm sure it didn't take long to come up with that. So here's your first place ribbon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Denise, you want to say anything?
I just want to say that these two young ladies helped train this puppy and gave her a lot of love and made her the champion that she is.
Champion.
She's only 20 months old. Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, she's 20 months.
She's 20 months old.
So she can't vote.
Not yet.
All right, we'll take care of that later. Okay, thank you for coming. I know it was quick, but
But thank you very much for
thank you.
acknowledging.
All right, Ruby.
So, Oktoberfest champion. Thank you.
Bye, girls.
Thank
Be
you.
careful on this thing. All right. We have a short agenda and then a presentation. Any comment on, is there any comments from the public on the agenda items? Is there any comments from anyone other than agenda items, but not disillusionment? Is anyone here for something else? Can they hear me over there? You don't know? Okay, then I'll keep going.
Anybody have any comments on the agenda items?
No. I don't think so, no, okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes that were done on October the 18th, 2021, and which was a special meeting, and then just after that, we had our regular meeting, again, October 18th, 2021.
So moved.
Is there a second by Brian? All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda, it's a short resolution that I'll read, introducing local law and setting a public hearing to adopt a local law to opt out of licensing and establishing retail cannabis dispensaries and on-site cannabis consumption establishments. Be it resolved that the introductory local law opt out of licensing and establishing retail cannabis dispensaries and on-site cannabis consumption establishments is hereby introduced by Mayor D'Onofrio before the Board of Trustees of the Village of Highland Falls in the County of Orange in the State of New York. Be it further resolved that copies of the proposed local law be laid upon the desk of each member of the Board of Trustees, which it has been. Be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees shall hold a public hearing on said proposed local law at the Village Hall, 303 Main Street, Highland Falls, New York, at 7 p.m. on December the 6th at 2021. And be it further resolved that the village clerk shall publish or cause to be published a public notice in the official newspaper of the Village of Highland Falls no later than 10 days prior thereto. Will this be on the website? The proposed local law?
Yes.
Okay. May I have a motion? Motion by trustee Howard. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by trustee DeSalvo. May I have roll call?
Trustee Guerrero? Yes. Trustee Howard?
Yes.
Trustee DeSalvo?
Yes.
Trustee Phillips?
Yes.
Mayor D'Onofrio?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. I have a resignation of a part-time dispatcher effective October the 4th, 2021. Stephanie Ramos. You have that before you. Thank you for the opportunity you have provided me during my time with the department. Can we accept this?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes. Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. May I have approval for the recertification training for pesticides application permit for Tim Green?
Motion. Second.
Have it, Gina? All in favor?
Yes. Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. Is James Titolo on the other side here? Not yet?
I don't see him.
Okay, let me know when he comes in, if he stays over there, please.
Oh, he just came up.
All right. All right, I'm going to skip for 1 second. Let's do the bills and claims for 21-22, $169,662.46.
Make a motion to pay the bills and claims as stated.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes. Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Titolo,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
state your name and where you live, please.
Jim Tilo, Mountain Avenue, 95 Mountain Avenue. I'm sorry, I'm out of breath, I'm rushed. Okay, I asked to speak at this meeting because I want to provide the community with many inconsistencies.
Put that microphone closer.
I want to provide the community with many inconsistencies that I have found between the study, assumptions, and these flyers that were sent out. So, first, if I can catch my breath here, I'm going to go to this document. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to take some time, and I'm going to go identify what page I'm on and discuss some of the issues. Actually, this doesn't have a page, but this has a residential checklist. The CET study identifies the possibility of us being awarded 100% of the monies. I think we know as a village, we cannot ask the taxpayers of Fort Montgomery to allow us to have all of that support. So I think that for this discussion and for our review, we need to keep the 70% in our head, not 100%. And some of these notes on each page are very, very important. Note number 2. So I think this is page 7. It's page 7. Note number 2. The impact analysis does not include an estimate of $225,000 to $275,000 in village and town transition implementation operation costs. Does not include an estimate. I come from the estimate world. The estimate is only as good as the information you're provided. So to me, this is a guesstimate. So 225 to 275 could easily be $500,000 that the village and the town would have to come up with in this implementation. Shortly down 2 paragraphs, this report identifies outstanding debt totaling 4.4 million. 4.4 million. I have 4 or 5 of these brochures that identify our debt as 8 million. 8 million. So you have to question everything in these documents if one of the first line items isn't true.
Jim, I'm sorry. What's in there?
So these are the flyers that were sent out. Okay, I'm sorry, and I have a discussion about all of these too. I don't know how our neighbors, to promote an agenda, can distort information to this level. Okay, it's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. I guess if you say it enough times, people believe it. I was hoping that only happened in Washington, but it happens here in the Village of Highland Falls also. Page 10. Town and, let's see, services delivered by the town and villages, and there will be increased activities requiring additional staffing and contracted services in the area of administration, seeking of grants, grant management, human resources, water and sewer bills, financial operations, infrastructure, and capital improvements, planning, financing, record management, legal, etc. To me, that sounds like a lot of money. Village employees. However, there is no guarantee that village employees will have positions with the town. The preference of the town is to fill newly created positions as new hires. Other factors, complexities related to civil service, existing town collective bargaining. So this is on page 10. So I read this document 3 times. So it's important that we read it at least twice, because you find a lot of things when you read it twice. Upon dissolution, page 11, the village no longer has the ability to appoint members to the board. Again, this is page 12. 12. 70% of the credit has to be applied to reduce property taxes. This report identifies 70, but focuses on 100%. This is a good report. I would give it a B, okay? Maybe a B+. It emphasizes the pros and is very quiet on the cons. You have to actually find them. This is a big issue. CET funding, CETC funding. Many of these brochures identified that's guaranteed. Somebody said it was guaranteed until perpetuity. CET funding, CETC funding is appropriated by the state. And it's not guaranteed to any municipality. I have a document here, I have some reports that I found that said that the state is in such financial trouble that they don't know where they're gonna get their money from. And this is from the internet. Okay, everybody has seen page 13, I hope. And I again encourage all of the taxpayers and the voters to read this document. At 70%, village taxpayers receive a 25% savings. Town taxpayers have an increase in taxes of 5%. Now remember that there was additional transition costs that have not been included in this report. There is additional personnel costs that have not been included in this report, in these cost savings. There is additional tools, equipment, dump trucks. The village has the right to sell everything we have at 10 cents on the dollar, whatever it is, pay down debt. So we can be sure in the very near future that the town will have to buy new dump trucks, new loaders, new backhoes, whatever it is, and manpower. Page 14, estimated daily savings, $2.50 for all of this work, for all of this activity, $2.50. Again, preliminary estimates are indicated to be in the range of 225 to 275. Preliminary estimates for the town now, for the town to implement these costs. So first it was a village, now it's a town. And it's easy, when you look at 15, it's easy. Legal, consulting services, temporary fiscal services, independent financial audits. If I had the time, I would have called and tried to get a good handle on these type of costs. But I did call my accountant, and he said that the financial audit would cost at least $50,000. So it would have been good if this group, the Labarge group, actually put values on there that we could have determined whether it was true or not. Here's another note. This is why you got to read the notes. It's unbelievable. The above estimate does not include the costs associated with, this is in this book, this is in this report, with the purchase of equipment, vehicles, or buildings for the provision of services for the provisions of services to the former village. The minimum needs are provided in the dissolution fiscal impact. So, I just want to make everybody aware. When we start talking about buildings, the town hall is already basically overstaffed. This facility is overstaffed. When you start talking about buildings and you consider prevailing wage rates, that number is $10 million and up. That number to build a facility is $10 million and up. And how do I know that? This is my business. There's some police services, which I really want to talk about. In 2019, the department made 162 arrests, of which 10 were felonies, 100 misdemeanors, 52 violations. It handled 39 traffic accidents and assigned 1,000 parking tickets, plus or minus. The town made 76 arrests. Police indicated the majority were misdemeanors and traffic violations. So the village made double the, over two times the arrests that the town made. Perhaps we have a different problem here. And that's why we need a full-time police department, not a part-time police department, okay? I took the time to call 5 industry professionals, retired. I didn't ask them if I could use their names, so I prefer not to, but I can provide anybody with whatever names you need. They said to me, policing is not a part-time job. Policing is not a part-time job. I have a summary here that says that this department, our department, executed 8 search warrants and 84 arrests. 84 arrests in a 20-month period. So, we have to think about that. How does that work? Do they come in one day and say that, I know that 2 guys have drugs over here, somebody told me I'm going there? No. It's police work. It takes time. It takes energy. It takes discussions. It takes planning. Police work is not a part-time job. When we had that problem, I was very concerned about my property values in this community. And this group of police officers solved that problem for us. So why the hell would we consider letting them go? I don't understand. I don't even know how this started.
Jim,
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, this is important.
I know.
One second. I also know that our village police assisted with 400 plus backup calls to the town police. Now, why did the town need a backup call? I mean, we should do that. We're available. But if you've got only 1 officer downtown and you're going to come up to a car in the middle of the night, God forbid what could happen. God forbid. So we, because we decide to have, we're smart enough to have 2 people in our community. There's another document here that really got me twisted on this. There's a document, one of these flyers said we are increasing our police from 2 to 3. I mean, it's really, there's so much disinformation here. Somebody's gonna read through this real quick and say, it sounds good. So, we have 2 square miles. We have 2 police officers. That division, to me, is 1 per square mile. It's roughly 10 miles to Bear Mountain, 10 miles to the top of Stony Point, to the top of the mountain here. So call it, townwide is 100 square miles. So 3 divided by 100 is 0.03 police officers per square mile. But somebody thinks we're going to believe this. Somebody thinks that we're going to read this real quick and say, oh my God, we're getting 3. Fort Montgomery, in the event that this materializes, Fort Montgomery says they will continue with a part-time chief and a deputy chief. How long do we think that's gonna last? 30 part-time police force. First of all, I don't know how Bob Livesey and his team would allow 30 police officers to be managed so that they are as productive as possible by a part-time chief. I don't know. I mean, I would love to understand that because I changed my whole environment down in New York, and I'll tell everybody to go home a half a day. Let me just see one more thing, I'm sorry. Okay. So, this is page 54, clearly indicates that there's $4.1 million worth of debt. Every time I open this thing, there's either 8 million or 5 million or 6 million. I don't understand. Is it our friends and our neighbors just throwing shit on the wall and hope that it sticks? Somebody votes yes for dissolution. I mean, you gotta question the motives of the people who write these things. This also says, out of 25 current full-time village employees, 17 positions will be retained. But I read to you in this study, so which is right and which is wrong, says that the town has no intention or would prefer a new hire. Town would prefer a new hire. It's written in here. It's black and white, black and white. This is, so I took a lot of time with this one. I mean, I even had my assistant, I said, you gotta find something about this. 551 villages in New York State. Number 2, highest tax rate in Orange County. The second one says number 6, highest tax rate among villages with populations of 3 to 4,000. Now, that's a good comparison. We're close, right? The next one says 45th highest tax rate per capita among medium-sized villages, population to 11,000 people. So, I don't even know what the function of that division is, per capita. We have 3,500 people. They're almost quadrupling the denominator in that equation, right? So of course we're gonna have a ridiculous number. I don't even know what the comparison is. I don't know how you can use it. I actually think that this crap was made up. Somebody said, let's put this in, and if somebody has information on this, please let me know, because I would love to look at it and understand it. Again, our debt, $8 million. Unity. Fort Montgomery has no vote in this. What unity? Fort Montgomery has no vote.
Okay.
Hey, Joe, one more second.
One more.
Impact aid, guaranteed. Impact aid is not guaranteed. Here's why. What I say is do your homework. Division of Budgets, New York State. Fiscal year 2021, Impact State Budget Fiscal Plan, which provides a $13.3 billion shortfall. $1 billion shortfall. Do you think that we're guaranteed any money? Do you think $13 billion shortfall? So this is not just one. Just Google it. New York faces its largest budget crisis in decades. After overstating budget deficits, that's the second one, Cuomo and de Blasio didn't print. Federal aid needed, but likely not to come. New York State has dug itself into the deepest hole. Just go online. Go online. So, real quickly, I ask that you believe 10% of what you read, and 50% of what you see with your own eyes. Funding for the state is not guaranteed. Cost to the town and the village. When you consider all these unknowns and the possible outcome of each assumption, because each one of those inputs had assumptions, and you cannot see a favorable income, a favorable outcome, then you should vote no for dissolution. If you have not read this report twice and understand everything in it, you should vote no for dissolution. If you are okay, if you are not okay with saving $2.50 a day on the backs of the Fort Montgomery taxpayers, you should vote no for dissolution. If you are proud of what Chief Scott did with his team and his accomplishments over a short period of time, 8 search warrants, 84 drug arrests, you should vote no for dissolution. If you're a union member, you should vote no. Listen, I'm a taxpayer, just like you, and I'm going to take my time, okay? If you are a union member, you should not vote on, you should vote no on dissolution. If you do not believe it is proper for a few of our neighbors to send misinformation every week in order to promote their agenda, you should vote no on dissolution. If you believe that the village employees, water plant, sewer plant, DPW, and village hall should be treated fairly and with a full-time job and benefits, you should vote no for dissolution. If you believe that our friends in Fort Montgomery should have a say in this, you should vote no for dissolution. If you love this little village and you don't believe that the grass is greener on the other side of the mountain, vote no for dissolution. Please do your homework, and I'm talking to the taxpayers out there. Believe 10% of what you read, 50% of what you see. My family and I will be voting no for dissolution on Monday.
That's the one thing left on the agenda. Wade, if you could come up, and I won't read it. You asked me not to read it all, but I need to read a little bit.
No, don't
No,
read
they need to know who you are.
I was going to explain who I am.
Go ahead.
All right. Is the mic for the audio? What's the mic for? It's for you. My name is Wade Beltramo. I'm General Counsel with the New York State Conference of Mayors. We are a not-for-profit association that represents the state, city, and village governments. We provide a variety of services to our members, including technical assistance on a daily basis. We draft sample local laws. I've been getting a lot of questions about marijuana opt-out. We have sister associations like the Association of Towns who provide a similar service for our towns across the state, as well as the Association of Counties does the same things for the county governments in the state of New York. Why am I here? Because dissolution's a village issue. It's a big issue. It's an issue that's existed a long time. Villages have been forming and dissolving for many, many years, and it's a question that comes to me when we get calls or emails. What's the procedure? What's the process? What's the substance? So I'm the person and have been the person at the Conference of Mayors for the last 19 years to handle dissolution questions. I had a PowerPoint, but I've got the slideshow, so everybody, if you don't have a copy, there's more back there. I will make sure that the mayor gets a PDF version of it. I just as soon answer questions that anybody has, elected officials or members of the public. I do think you've had a lot of opportunities. The One Highlands group has had a couple of good presentations by Dr. Parshall and also Dr. Benjamin. That's available online on their website. Very smart academics in the area of local government in the state of New York. The LaBerge presentation is very good. I second that. Everybody should take a look at this. This is a pretty good document. You know, most villages that go through the dissolution process, they don't have a study done prior to voting because the way the law is written doesn't afford a lot of time. So this is a very good document for how little time there is. This is not a guarantee. This is a snapshot. This is an estimate. You want to call it a guesstimate. But it'll educate you about, you know, what you can probably expect. But a couple of things I want to point out from my perspective is, and these are just lessons I think most people who've gone through dissolution, the best way to explain it is like, what should you be voting on? And what you should really be voting on, not necessarily is the numbers, because the numbers are not guaranteed. Nothing is here and guaranteed. What your tax bill, sorry, didn't mean to demote you. The tax numbers are not guaranteed. How much revenue you get from the state is not guaranteed. What the town does is not guaranteed, right? And so what you're really asking is, on the one hand, should we dissolve the village? But on the other hand is, should we rely on the town to provide all the services to us and represent us democratically in our local government, okay? That's one way I really think that you should think about this. Should we simply rely on the government of the town? Because that's what would happen if you dissolve, right? And there's been quite a few villages that have dissolved, voted for it, and against it in recent years. I say time and again, village dissolution is a town issue for that very reason. For that very reason. The other thing I'll note here, and it's democracy. We have democracy at the local level. I'm very passionate about local government. Local government is the coolest, most exciting. It's the most important level of government. Why is it? You know, all the federal government gets all the news. The state government gets all the news and the press. But your local governments are the most important to you. When you get up in the morning and you turn on the faucet to brush your teeth, it's coming from a municipal water service. And when it goes in the drain, it's going in a municipal sewer service. When you go out on the streets, most of the streets you drive on are built and maintained and plowed by local government, not the state or the federal government. When you call 911, it's not the state that's going to be responding in most instances. Not for fire, clearly. Not for EMS. And if you don't live out in a rural area that doesn't have any police coverage, then you're getting state police. All right? So local government's very, very important in that respect. And I'm very passionate about that. But town government, let's say, and do we have any town officials here this evening? I know they've been talking and been involved a little bit in the process. The town council is going to make all the determinations about what happens with the village, how the resources are handled, what districts are created or not created, what happens with the police department, what's going to be the size of the police department, how many patrols are you going to have, how many officers are you going to have on patrol. And this document could set it out. You could have all the town officials here this evening, and you could have asked them, town officials, what are we going to do? And they could say, we're going to do this. And they could change their minds. They could get voted out of office. And it's happened. It's happened in many instances. The Village of Lyons, the plan called for the town taking over the police department. They didn't get any input for the town. They got input for the town. They didn't get commitment from the town officials. They did not have a town police department. In Seneca Falls, they almost didn't have a town police department. And there was the supervisor who was promoting village dissolution got voted out of office. So you need to think about that going forward, is that you're asking for the town, if you vote to dissolve the village, the town to represent you. How do you feel about that? Okay. I put that out there. I do want to go through a couple of things here. I'm all about transparency here too. I'm neither for nor against the dissolution of the village. Lovely village here. I love this village. I love West Point. It's great to come here all the time and visit. I'm not going to move here. Sorry. We don't take a position at the Conference of Mayors for or against on any dissolution. Having said that, I've presented a lot, and most of the times, nobody's happy with what I say. Why is that? Because for village property owners, if you dissolve, your taxes are going to go down. I've yet to see a village dissolution not result in a lowering of the village property owners' taxes. How much depends on a variety of factors. Whether your services are cut, so for example, in the Village of Lyons case, their taxes went down a lot because they got rid of the police department, which is generally one of the biggest expenses. Well, you could abolish your police department now if you wanted to do that, and save yourself a lot of money. That's not an efficiency, and I should make this argument all the time. Village dissolution is not about efficiencies. We don't have a lot of efficiencies created by village dissolution in the state of New York. Most studies show that you get about 2 to 5% efficiencies. Your cost savings, your tax savings can be higher for a variety of reasons, and I can discuss those. But the reason I point this out is that most local governments are pretty lean and mean. The village is pretty lean and mean. You're not getting a big fancy new renovated village hall here. They make do with what they have, right? Same thing at the town level. Town, village governments are very responsive to their taxpayers. They generally don't raise taxes a lot, and they're very efficient in that respect. I should point out here a couple of comments that I've seen that it's kind of a struggle because although I am a champion for local government in the state of New York, our system is a little archaic. I'll admit it. New York is our structure of local government. If we were to make it from scratch today, we wouldn't create what we have, in all honesty. In other parts of the country, they have counties and cities. That's all they have. In fact, the majority of states have counties and cities. They don't have counties and towns and cities and villages. They just have those two levels of government. And if we were to do that here, we would probably do something similar. I will note here too, another thing, and one of the other things I think is helpful for local officials to think about, or community residents to think about, on these complicated issues, is issues of fairness, and also what makes sense with respect to your local government boundaries. What makes sense to your local government boundaries? I think that's a much easier discussion to have than to get in a debate about like the nitty gritty. How many people have looked at this report? I've looked at it. I've looked at a lot of these. Oh, I can't tell you how many. I understand this, but for the average person, this is going to be a little bit of your eyes glazing over, and it's going to help you get to sleep tonight if you have a little insomnia. But some simpler issues. What's the basis for our local government boundaries? In some instances, and I've told this, I was having a discussion earlier about potential annexation. Are you providing services outside of your municipal boundaries? If you are, you should consider annexation. And this is a huge issue for cities and villages across the state. Why is it? Why is that a huge issue and a potentially alternative to dissolution? It's because you get free riders. You have your police responding to calls outside of their boundaries. And so on a mutual aid basis, you're providing a benefit to people who aren't paying the cost of police. Why don't you potentially annex on them? Are you providing a water sewer outside of your boundaries? Time and again, I've started to tell municipalities, not started since I've been at NICOM for 19 years, stop providing services outside of your boundaries. Make them annex in. Make your local government boundaries rational in that respect. Okay? Because that will foster fairness. It will foster more equitable tax burden between those inside and outside the municipality, potentially. I also note, and this is an interesting thing too, the town boundaries here were laid out in the 1800s. Town boundaries, actually, town governments are not actually considered incorporated entities by the Census Bureau in the state of New York because there's no rationale to their boundaries. They don't match anything. Most of them were laid out in the 1830s or 40s or 50s. And that's one of the challenges here too. You have two dense population centers. You have the village of Highland Falls and the hamlet of Fort Montgomery, which is also a census designated place. But the vast majority of the rest of the town is obviously West Point, which is its own unique factor in your situation, but a bunch of rural area. And you should ask yourself, what's the basis for our town boundaries? Should we be saving money by consolidating towns potentially? Should the town of Highlands consolidate with the town of Cornwall? And you're generally likely to see greater actual true efficiencies by town consolidation than consolidating an urban area like the village with a rural area. Having said that, villages dissolve. Just because the village goes away doesn't mean that, the town, buildings are gonna, or the village buildings or properties are gonna vanish or what have you. You can have a voice. There is something to be said to have a democratically elected voice too, so you need to think about that. Are you gonna have a voice at the town level? Very quickly, do people here have questions about the procedure or process? Hopefully a lot of that's been covered. It's in the materials. I've given an outline here. Next Monday, a week from today, it's been a long road to hoe to get here. you're going to vote on whether to dissolve the village, not to study dissolution. The vote on the ballot will be, shall the village of Highland Falls dissolve, yes or no? You could potentially have a second vote after that, but it's not guaranteed. The threshold for getting that on the ballot is much higher than the initial petition requirement for initiating the dissolution process. So my recommendation is go into this next week, not just to study dissolution, but you make that decision. And I will say I'm not a fan of this current law because it does require you to kind of rush into this a little bit in a way that the previous law did not. The previous law was not great either, I'll say that. Article 19 in the New York State Village Law had its own issues. But it requires you to make decisions and not necessarily have answers from the town in that context. A couple of things too to note here, and I think a lot of people don't understand this, and I think actually one of the potential benefits from the village dissolution process is it does get people engaged, and hopefully you all are engaged and are learning more about your village and learning about the town. I know this has been said on a couple of the presentations. All village residents are town residents as well. How active and engaged are you with the town right now? How many of you are attending the town meetings and going over the town budget? Good for you, right? Local government's the most democratic, most accessible level of government. You should all be involved. Because one of the big tax savings for village residents when dissolution occurs, and I'll say this again, your taxes are going to go down with or without the CETC, and I'll talk about CETC in a second. Your taxes will go down, village residents, if you dissolve. But it's not really from efficiencies or elimination of duplication, but because to a certain degree you subsidize town operations right now. And you should be familiar with the town budget process, the general fund and the highway fund, the part town and the townwide fund of the town budget, because it impacts you village property owners. So get involved in that respect. It's another reason, again, why village dissolution is a town issue. A couple of things to talk about. Yes, sir. Question. I love questions. Please.
You just said that the village would, in essence, taxes go down.
Yep.
But we are quite unique because the village is bigger in assessed value than the town.
Yeah.
And on our consolidated lines down there,
Yep.
the village residents pay more,
Yep.
like
Yep.
59, 60%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of a,
Your taxes are still going to go down. It doesn't matter in that respect. Your taxes are going to go down. And here, in two ways. First of all, because you pay townwide taxes, both in the general fund and in the highway fund. Village property owner pays townwide taxes. I didn't look at the town budget. I looked for it. I got too many other things going on to give you an idea. But you should call up your town officials and find out what that figure is. So the other thing is that you take care of certain resources that, should the village dissolve, the town's going to have to step in and start taking care of those. Streets and sidewalks. The town's going to start responsible for all your streets. And so that's a shift, okay? How much depends. It varies from dissolution to dissolution. Go ahead. Yes.
sidewalk districts. So the village will still be
yeah.
responsible. We're going to have sidewalk districts, we're going to have lighting districts, we're going to have water districts, sewer districts.
I'm going to get to that in a second. That's a great comment. So let's, very quickly, a couple of things that are required to be addressed in the plan, and we'll come back. That impacts how much savings you actually have, because the more you create districts, the less savings there are to village property owners, okay? Because you're just not achieving, you're not, having a cost shift. So to the extent that you have a sidewalk district and it's not shifted into a town-wide fund issue or expense, well, you're just paying what you were paying before. If you have a street lighting district, you're only paying to the extent that it matches the former village boundaries, you're paying what you paid before for that expense as a general rule, okay? Very quickly, a couple of things that have to be addressed in the plan. One of the issues, let's talk CETC first. With or without CETC, your taxes are going to go down. I always advise residents to consider the merits of dissolution without considering the CETC. Because it's not guaranteed, it's subject to an annual appropriation. whatever the fiscal issues of the state are, I'm not going to go into that, but it's subject to an annual appropriation. If you want to see whether it's guaranteed, I suggest that you call your senator or your assembly member and ask them, is it guaranteed? Your CETC money, and this is the other thing, and I included a chart here, it's hard to see, but it gives you an idea. The town of Highlands already gets more money than any other town in the state as part of the AIM program, right? If you look at that, it's hard to see. I'll present a better, I have a small one here. Let me see. Yes.
Okay.
It's this one down here. It's really small. I'm sorry, it's really small. I'll get a bigger version that the mayor can put on the website tomorrow. So right now, the town of Highlands, I think it's 130 some odd thousand in aid from the state as part of the aid to municipalities every year. If you add the CETC, that would be $960,000 a year. Over $1 million, which would dwarf what every other town in Orange County gets. Dwarf it. How long is that going to last? Well, first of all, I was asked, is that fair? Why does the town of Highlands get this? It's terrible public policy. CETC is a mess. They want to bribe consolidations, but there's no rhyme or reason. If you're a town that, say, has 13,000 residents, but you don't have a village in it to dissolve, you can never get access to that money. Why? That doesn't make any sense. Particularly since the town outside of the village has for years been benefiting from having the village in the first place. I think it's just terrible public policy, okay? They've been getting the benefit, and now we're going to give them more benefit. The other reason is, and I note this also on this page, the state, there is actually a bill that is in the governor's office right now to create a task force to re-examine how we distribute AIM. Literally, it was delivered to Governor Hochul's office on October 27th. It will be acted on in the next day or two, and I anticipate the governor will sign that, and we will have a task force sometime over the next year that will examine how the state distributes aid, and this is definitely going to be a topic of conversation, because it is completely unfair, okay? So don't focus on CETC. It either makes sense or it doesn't make sense without the state bribing you with aid that has no rational basis for it, okay? So I put that out there along those lines. Jobs, let's talk a little bit about jobs. This is a challenge. And you definitely need to be thinking about this because you have employees. Should the village decide to dissolve, one of the very first things that needs to be examined is what's going to happen with your municipal employees. The town, I will guarantee this, cannot do it without taking on significant employees. If you're telling me the town doesn't need to hire anybody, I'm telling you the town has a lot of people sitting around doing nothing. And I'm sure the town does not. They don't have a lot of people that can take over all the things that the village does right now with respect to water and sewer, streets and sidewalks, and your police, obviously, okay? The plan that's adopted needs to provide for the transition of those employees. There's a challenge with that, however, and those challenges include the state's labor laws, okay? Some of the transition can occur pre-dissolution, okay? It can, and this is what I recommend for any village that does decide to dissolve. Tie up all of those loose ends prior to dissolution. Transfer of property, selling of property, transferring of employees, but they are subject to the state's labor laws. If the town has unionized workforce, those union bargain for agreements are going to take precedence. They are going to be how the town hires people, including hires village officials, is going to be a mandatory subject of negotiation pursuant to the New York State labor law. And this dissolution plan doesn't get to forego that requirement, okay? If they don't have a unionized workforce, then they still have to hire those individuals subject to civil service as a general rule, okay? So there's definitely challenges with that. But you want to make sure, because when you have a village dissolution and the police or your certified water or sewer officials who have the certifications from the state to run your water and sewer infrastructure, and they're not sure they're gonna have a job, what are they gonna do? They're gonna go look for a job because they got bills to pay and mouths to feed. So you wanna make sure that you take care of your employees that the town is going to need to have. I can't stress that strongly enough. Finally, with respect to your resources, I mentioned this before, village dissolution is not about efficiency as a general rule, it's about fairness. And to the extent that you have resources, and what am I talking about that? I'm talking about real estate, I'm talking about equipment. To the extent that the village property owners, taxpayers, paid for those resources, you want to distribute those or transfer those resources in a way that is fairest to those property owners and taxpayers who paid for them. You don't want to just give it to the town. All right, yes, question?
Well, we were told that if there is dissolution, the water plant, the sewer plant, the reservoir, the parks, the senior citizen center, which we got through a grant, etc., will all be transferred to the town.
Yep.
But any debt that's incurred
Yeah.
on those things will stay with the
Yeah.
legacy district.
Yeah, that's a great question. That is a great
Now,
question.
what you just said was be sure it's fair.
Well, yeah, that's why, well, and there's a corollary to that, so let's follow up. That's a great example. Let's go each of those three examples because they're very important. Water and sewer infrastructure in the reservoir that's used for your water supply, those are going to be transferred to a district, right? And districts are they're part of town law, but districts are their own thing as well under New York state law. So this is one of the things to think about. And towns say, well, now we can do everything with districts. They absolutely can, and it can apportion the costs more fairly, particularly when you have towns that are very not uniform. They're right. The village itself right now, Highlands Falls, is fairly uniform. It doesn't have a huge rural area part to it. You don't need districts because you're kind of all one and the same as far as demographics go. Towns not so much, so that's why they have districts, right, to make it fair. So those resources should go to the district, but one of the things I would say also when you make that transfer of the water and sewer infrastructure in the reservoir is that the district, particularly if the district is larger than just the village boundaries, correct? You provide water and sewer outside of your municipality? Absolutely. And potentially you would create a new district, or maybe you just have one district that would be the village and a second district that would serve those other places. Why would you want to do that? Anybody have an idea why you would want to, as I sometimes say, do we have children here? Why, sometimes I say district the hell out of it? Because districts have different cost structures. And I actually have a couple of examples of those different cost structures. Did I include them here? Or did I take them off? No, I didn't include them. I'll include them on it. So I'll give you an example. The fire department for Seneca Falls. Fire department for the Seneca Falls, it was the line item in the Village of Seneca Falls Fire Department was 0.59 per thousand. That was the mill rate. Okay, 0.59 per thousand. The new fire district that the village became part of was double that, was 1.18 mil per thousand. And don't get me wrong, the taxpayers in the village of Seneca Falls, still, their taxes went down. That's a different issue. There's a landfill there that generates like $2 million and $3 million or whatever revenue a year for the town. That's a separate issue. Their mill rate was higher. Why was it higher? Well, they started providing service to a rural area. It's more expensive to provide services to rural areas. The village of North Collins, they had a sanitation district that was like $118 a year to provide garbage collection to the village. It was $160 to provide collection to a larger district that included the village and a rural area outside of the village. Because if you're a sanitation truck, you can go down a mile of village road and pick up garbage from 20 houses. In a rural area, you go down a mile of road and you pick up garbage from 4 houses. It's a different cost structure. So it's about fairness. You want to see what's fair. And you should definitely make sure in that respect, if there's outstanding debt and somebody else is getting the benefit of your resources that you paid for, that they also help pay for the debt. It can be addressed and should be addressed in the plan and also in actually how you effectuate the proposal. okay? With respect to the parks, parks are held inalienable under New York state law. They would be transferred to the town inalienable. They would be financed out of the general fund as a general rule, held inalienable. Again, to the extent that the village incurred debt in procuring or making improvements to the parks, one would say, hey, town residents are all getting the benefit of this. We should, you should make us whole, because any outstanding debt, and this is pursuant to the statute, that's not addressed in the plan or not just in the plan, but with an agreement with the town, becomes solely the responsibility of the properties located within the former village boundaries, okay? The senior center is a different example as well, because it doesn't have any of those complicating factors. It really depends on what you do with it. It's a building, right? It's a building. Does the town want it? Is the town gonna have a use for it? If they are, then they should agree to take on the debt when you transfer it prior to the village's dissolution's effective date. You don't want to leave any outstanding issues unresolved once the village dissolves. The village of Van Etten did that. It's not a place you want to be. You want to tie up all those loose ends, including any potential employee post-employment health benefits. You might want to create an annuity to pay for those down the road. That's what the village of Seneca Falls did, just to make sure that they kind of had an idea about what the liability was going to be for the village property owners for 20, 30 some odd years. Yes, question, comment?
You said you should make sure that you do it before the dissolution.
Before the effective date, right? I mean, before the effective date, right? You're voting next week. This plan is kind of good. It's a roadmap. It's a good roadmap. It's not binding on the town. And even if you have agreements, it's not guaranteed that any agreement with the town board would necessarily be binding. It really depends on the nature of the agreement. There is a legal principle, what we call the prohibition against binding future or successor boards. And you cannot bind future or successor boards in governmental decisions. If it is proprietary in nature, and I know everybody's like, what is he talking about? It's a legal issue. If it's proprietary in nature, that could be enforceable, but you'd rather, you got to tread lightly. You got to tread carefully in that. But those agreements that you would enter into as part of the plan to actually effectuate the dissolution, should you decide to dissolve.
I got it. Look, I can see, okay?
Questions? Sorry,
I
yes.
have a question.
Sorry.
You mentioned several times that dissolving the building would save us taxes.
Yep.
You guarantee that.
Well, I'm not guaranteeing.
Okay.
There's no...
So on that subject, could you talk about percentages? Are you talking about total taxes, county?
So that's great.
School and...
So that's perfect too, because I have a chart. I think I included that chart. Some people, and this is why I go back to educating yourself, like, do people really understand what their tax bill is? The lion's share of your tax bill is school taxes. Dissolving the village isn't going to do anything with the school taxes.
So right there, from the LaBerge report, we know that it's an estimate. You
Yep.
don't know if it's
Yep.
20%
Correct.
model or 50%
Correct.
model. In business, sometimes you go with 10% model.
Correct.
So we don't know what it is.
Correct.
So you're saying that the taxes will go down? You'd like to know how much?
Don't know.
What number are you talking about?
Don't know.
Okay, that's...
So this is why nobody likes my presentations, because I don't have answers.
Okay,
Sorry.
So all I would say is that kind of information probably should be quantified before you say it.
Except for I'm telling you, it can't be qualified.
Okay, that's
Because
what we wanna
the
hear.
town can't, even if the town came out, I said it, this were the town board here, again, instead of the village officials, and they agreed to do X, Y, and Z. And then you'd have, oh, well, okay, we got a budget now. They could come up with a budget. They could get voted out literally next election, and a different board would come in, and they could change their mind. That we're gonna change what the police coverage is. And it really does, it goes back to what the town decides it's gonna do. The more the town provides on a town-wide basis, the better for your taxes, right? But the more it districts, the less better it is for your tax outcome, right? The type of police service that they end up having. You would have police coverage, but is it gonna be the same number of patrols? Is it gonna be the same number of officers on patrol? Is it gonna be the same response time? I don't, like, that's also subject to union contracting as well, so that's a different issue as well.
So listen, no,
So-
Bonnie, Frank, and this gentleman.
Yep. Who's next? Yes,
What's your name?
Wade Beltramo, sorry, I'm very fast talker.
It's okay, I came here late. My name is Bonnie Snow. I appreciate this man's question because you can't quantify any of those figures
Nope.
about how much we're gonna save. My gut feeling is that the amount we're gonna save is far less than the services we're gonna lose. There is no way that if it snows, the departments from Fort Montgomery are gonna get over to us as quickly. It may be 2 days till we can go to a job. If I have a heart attack, it's gonna be, instead of 5 seconds it takes these guys to get to my house, it'll be maybe 20 minutes before they get there because they have other people to take care of. As far as I'm concerned, we're gonna be second-rate citizens. Now, I appreciate that you came up with this. I wasn't even on my way here, I was speed walking, and it just led me here. These people here, these cops, the people in the water department, these guys, they're not just workers.
I did not come up with this, I did not circulate or sign the petition, it's not my proposal.
They're my family,
Sorry.
okay? They're as much of a family as I have besides my husband, and I'm gonna fight for them, okay? And I don't like someone coming up with facts and figures about how much we're going to save. And what else I don't like upper middle class people who are scared of losing a couple dollars from their 401ks telling me, who's middle class, how I should live and what jobs these guys should lose. That really pisses me off. And I don't
Who's next?
Tony?
Who's next? I don't know.
One
who's
in the
next.
same. So,
No, one in the same, Mayor. Wow, and that's still, all right, go ahead.
I'm not sure I heard the answer to Harvey's question about the legacy district.
Yeah.
The village no longer exists, but the people that live there are still responsible for the dead. How will we be compensated for giving up our shares in the assets if the districts, if not compensated, but how will we be protected from further?
No, that's a great question. So the question is how can you protect yourself from potential unexpected costs? Because there could be lawsuits to come down the road after the village dissolves that you're still on the hook for because it accrued to the village as a legal entity. One of the things, and again, the Village of Seneca Falls did this very, very well. The administrator there, she didn't want any unknowns out there for her residents and her property owners and taxpayers. And so they tried to identify any potential expense, and with any of the surplus that they had, via, maybe it was just surplus funds, or maybe money that they got from selling assets that they didn't turn over to the town, they said, hey, we're gonna take these assets and we're gonna give it back to the property owners before the annexation becomes effective, or we're gonna create an annuity, and that annuity is going to be, exist for the purpose of paying off any unexpected expenses, or maybe for the other post-employment health benefits that the village had in place. There are mechanisms that can be created to address those issues. And it's just, you gotta come up with a plan. You gotta identify all the potential liabilities that would incur. I mean, some of them you're gonna have a pretty good idea about what they are, and some of them you're like, all right, we're gonna just have to be prepared. And then you're gonna try to take as much of the assets that you have and fund those, right? And it varies from municipality to municipality. I want to make this clear. I am neither for nor against dissolving the Village of Highland Falls. I did not circulate the petition. I did not sign the petition. All right, you had a question, sir.
So are you making a case that town governments are particularly incapable of managing?
No.
The villages have the same turnover, they have the same elections,
Yep.
they have the same change of course and strategy.
So,
There's nothing different about it.
the comment here, am I making the comment that town governments by its nature is incompetent? And No, I saw one of the other presentations that was given that talked about like, you would dissolve the town because the town police department's more professional. There's no basis for that. In fact, there are far more village police departments throughout the state than there are town police departments. So I found that kind of odd. Like, there's no monopoly on professionalism between villages and towns, okay? It's dependent on a variety of things, like how big the municipality is from a population perspective and how big of a budget, and how much training do they do, what services they provide. There's nothing to say by towns by their nature, or villages for that matter, one's inherently better or worse at governing or providing services. I'll go back to this, and you guys, Rockland and Orange County, in these areas that are, have a lot of suburbanization, are really a lot different, say, for example, than the towns in upstate New York. There are 933 towns, the vast majority of which are extremely rural. But there are suburban towns. There are many suburban towns that provide a lot of services, that have town police departments. There are certain things, many things they don't do on a town-wide basis, however. They don't do town fire departments or town-wide fire departments. The fire department, now I don't even know, do you have a village fire department here as a district? So the village board, I keep doing that, sorry. The village fire department is run by this board, right? They approve the budget. Town fire departments can be run in one of two different ways. Either a fire district or a fire protection district. A fire district actually has a separate board of commissioners. Right? So it's not the town council that runs the fire department that approves the budget and levies approves the assessment and the tax levy. It's a separate board of elected commissioners. Like, if that's what you want, you could have that. Now, why would you want to do that? I don't know what the proposal is for here as to whether to have one town-wide fire district, so have two. So here, well, there is, but the proposal, would it be to create a new one, or would it be create a town one, or whatever?
There is no plan, it's not.
Okay, let me give it, so let's go back here. Why do you have a district of commissioners? It's because some people say, well, I don't want town elected officials making the decisions about my district that impacts only me. Same thing for water districts or sewer districts. We actually do have some water or sewer districts in the state of New York that are run by elected board of commissioners. Most of those are on Long Island, or I think some are in Erie County too. But the rationale is they don't want a town board that may not represent them making decisions about their infrastructure and their levy, right? So now we have an extra election that you have, and we have, for those town fire department districts, they have elections in December. They elect the commissioners, they approve the budget.
Yeah, why would you have a town board that doesn't represent you?
Well, it is an election, but sometimes we have minorities in communities. I'm not saying that's why I go back to this. That's why my whole point at the very beginning was, you have to make a decision of, am I going to rely on the town to represent me? That's the question you need to ask yourself. That's the decision you need to make.
Let me say something. I want you to correct me. You're the expert here. The town outside the village does have a fire district, and they operate themselves. They set their budget, they ask the voters in Fort Montgomery to approve or disapprove. That's just the way it is. It's not run by the town board. Number two, no one that I've heard, and I don't want to hear, that anything negative about the town of Highlands. But the town of Highlands is half our size in population. They don't have a water department. They don't have a sewer. They have a part-time sewer department. And they have a part-time police force. Like Ben from the Burge, he never has seen a smaller community in services take over a larger community. But he hasn't seen it.
No,
okay?
I mean, Seneca Falls the town did not even have a police department. They took it over. So it can happen.
So I want to describe, and I want you to tell me if I'm right or wrong, and I won't take long. Districts. The village residents, we don't have districts. We don't do districts.
Correct.
In Fort Montgomery, the town outside the village, like most towns, if not all towns, you would have to tell me, have districts. They have lighting districts. They have sidewalk districts. They have a water district. They have a sewer district.
Yeah.
When a repairs, could be a major repair or a minor repair, have to be done inside that district. Only the district pays.
Only the district pays,
Right.
that's correct.
Only the district pays.
Correct.
Right now, we are contemplating, started research with our engineer to put new water lines in Ondiora Park, put new sewer lines in Ondiora Park, and possibly storm drainage. No, storm drainage and water, and possibly sewer. A lot of money.
Yeah,
And in Cragston.
Yep.
So people know where I'm talking about, Ondiora Park and Cragston, and someday in Satterley Grove. Now, if this vote is to dissolve the village, more than likely, the village of Highland Falls will become a district. But, here's where I want to go, but the town fathers and mothers could also take a smaller area within the village, i.e. Ondiora Park, Cragston, and Satterley Grove, and create a district.
Yep.
And you will only pay, those residents in those housing areas will only pay the debt for that project.
yep.
Is there anything wrong with that?
Nope,
Okay,
nope.
I'm done.
And that's,
Next
the
question.
districts, and along those lines of water and
I
sewer
want to see if
districts.
there's anyone else, Jim.
Yeah, just to clarify that though, for water and sewer in particular, there's no efficiencies. There are no efficiencies that are created. And of course, those are huge expenses. So whether or not you take on those large projects, you're gonna have those expenses whether or not the village dissolves, right? That's,
We'll have those expenses, but it'll be paid for by village-wide.
village-wide, but the property owners are gonna,
Not
it's
if
the
it's a
same.
district.
If it's a district, it's gonna be
Maybe
paid
I
by the
didn't understand your
districts.
question.
No,
Give me
so,
your question.
so no, my point being made is that districts are benefit assessments, meaning that the cost inured is directly attributable to the property owners
Right, that's
benefited,
right,
okay?
that's
Now, one of the things that can come into that is how much you carve up those districts. Like, you could have one giant water and sewer district that extends outside of the village boundaries if the village dissolves and providing service everywhere, or you might have 3 or 4 different districts. And whether or not you should do that, and you need to think about this, is do they have different cost structures? Is one area more rural where it's gonna cost you more money to provide water and sewer to a more rural part of the town? In some instances, we make that decision and we say, hey, we're gonna be one community, and so we're gonna subsidize that in that respect. But that's a decision to be made.
Next.
Yeah, who else had questions or comments that?
Anthony, did you
No,
know?
I'm good. Yeah,
You're good?
You answered my question. Thank you.
Frank?
When you talk about the taxes are going down, that is based on a study that the LaBerge Group did. In that study, they talked about having just of maintaining a part-time department like they have. Well, with the taxes going down, that means services have to go down, right? You can't provide the same amount of services, to the same amount of people. Let me just finish 1 second. And then the second thing is, then a lot of this is based on the police department. If they now decide that they can't run this with a part-time department, F off from this snow, that if they have part-time guys that are up on the mountain, they're out on 293, they cover a larger area than we do in the village. And now you only have the 3 officers and 2 are on accidents, and somebody has a heart attack in the village, and we always get there first before the ambulance start CPR, administration, do whatever we can first. You're gonna have a loss of services, so you have to look at that. And if they do, in fact, talk about hiring more full-time officers, those savings now have got to go down.
So that is a great point with respect to police in particular, because there's no police districts under New York State town law. It's either town-wide or it's nothing at all. It is practically impossible for the town to provide the same level of police service that a village does. By that I mean patrols, frequency of patrols, number of men on patrols, and response times, because the town area is so much larger, right? So you're gonna have to deal with that. That's gonna be a question. Like, and do the town people, residents, way out maybe in the more rural areas, are they gonna be fine with, well, you're still gonna get poor response time, but your taxes are gonna go up because we now have this extra expense from the police. But we wanna maintain the response times in the village of Highland Falls. Absolutely. I go back to this, that there is that caveat. If the town wanted to provide the level of police service that you have now for the village, but town-wide, that would obviously be a huge expense that's not I've never seen anybody propose that. That's why I've never seen taxes for the towns go up substantially. But I'll say this, even when if you look at the proposal, right? The proposal has, without taking into consideration CETC, village property owners' taxes go down, town outside of village property owners' taxes go up. And that's because the subsidy that the village property owners provide goes away. But this service question could throw that out of whack, no doubt, absolutely. Police is a very big, difficult issue to deal with. It's just.
What's it gonna be?
Which one?
Just a quick question. So I'm gonna go back 5 minutes ago. You talked about the assets and the legal ease of the assets. So I took from what you said that it would probably benefit the village residents if we were to sell our assets.
Depends, do you need those assets?
Well,
You don't want to sell your water infrastructure because you need that.
Well, hold on. So they talked about a water district
Yeah.
at the town, at town meetings for the village residents. Now, we have 3 dams. We have Big Bog Meadow, Little Bog Meadow, and we have the Blue Dam. And in this flyer, it states that that asset will stay with the village residents, or the hamlet of the village at that point in time.
It would go to a district or the townwide. Those are only the 2 options. It would either go to a district that is created, and we don't know what the district boundaries would be, that has to be determined.
Well, okay. No, I hear you.
I don't know that flyer.
I'm just saying, I got information on this flyer, so it might be missing some information. But if that was true, that they created a water district, and that water district included Bog Meadow, and it stayed with the hamlet of Highland Falls, we know the dams need repairs or maintenance. That means only the village residents would be paying for that in their district.
Correct.
But the town would set our water rates.
Assuming you don't have an elected board of commissioners, yes, it would be because the town council for all the districts except for a fire district or specific water and sewer districts where there is a specific elected board of commissioners, it's the town council that makes those decisions.
Perfect.
That's right. You're relying on the town to represent you and provide services to you.
Jim, that comment on that flyer, that mailer, that the Bog Meadow, our reservoir would stay with Highland Falls is obviously not accurate.
Misinformation.
It's misinformation. Harvey?
Couple things. On the flyer, it says 25, out of 25 current village employees, 17 positions will be retained. But the town has said that they will hire as a new hire, which means the 17 employees that they're gonna hire are not guaranteed to be current village employees, and if it's a new hire, they would go in as a step 1, which means somebody who's been here 30 years, unless they negotiate and make an agreement with the town to keep them at their same rate, could be told, no, these are...
Yeah, there are labor issues. Labor is very difficult in this area, and we've been struggling with it for a long time. And to be honest, we've had communities that have tried to get clarification from the state, from the Department of Labor and the Office of the State Comptroller. We have not gotten ever any clarification. I'll just put that out there.
One question, if I may. There's a checklist in here on what the policing will be. According to the town, they say that they are going to do a full part-time police force. They will have, 2 officers townwide on the 7 to 3, which is the day shift. 3 officers on the 3 to 11 shift and the 11 to 7 shift. And a floater officer on an 8-hour shift to cover parts of 3 to 11 and 11 to 7. Right now, the village by itself has 2 cars on the road at all times, usually with a supervisor available. The town has 1 car, maybe 2, if they can get the personnel to man them. Based on this, we are losing a car on all shifts. Also, they talked about having, since they're going to part-time, they're going to have to hire 16 additional officers, if they can get them. Which means, since they have a 1-room police station, they're going to have to build a police station. If you consider the cost of building a house to be $200,000, what's it going to cost you to build a police station? $1 million?
I don't do construction, I don't know.
I grew up in construction.
We got new people, yes. Yep, go ahead.
Just on the concern of the employees, if it's a civil service job, is there anything that civil service does to protect their step and longevity?
That's not my area of expertise, but no.
The service credit would be retained, but they could start over as a brand new employee for other internal purposes.
There's no special, like, bump on the list or anything along those lines?
Yeah.
We don't even have those positions at the moment, so.
So that's a challenge. I will tell you, it's one of the things that is required under Article 17A to be addressed in the plan. But again, we have not gotten any clarification from the state as to what they can and cannot do, right? And so therein lies a huge challenge along those lines.
What I would like you to do, because this isn't being done right, people should get up to the mic or we pass the
Well,
microphone.
yeah,
Would you
sorry.
repeat?
I'm sorry, yeah.
Repeat her question and give the answer.
The question was really about, and if I've misstated, let me, the transferring of employees, assuming that the town really wants to take the village employees, as many as they have need for, and hire them over at the town, what is their guarantee that they would get?
Where, if any, does civil service protect the longevity of the employee or their step or their grade?
Well, the first thing I always say is contact your county civil service and see what they say, right? So the county civil service, they have a lot of power and we defer to the county civil service. But as a general rule, if the town, because these are new employees for the town. These are, in that respect, they're new employees. And the village is going away. The argument can be made that because of 17A, that it can be addressed in the plan, but we don't have any precedent for that. I'm not aware of any court cases or PERB decisions that address this issue along the lines if it's a...
So they can be offered a job, but it doesn't mean they're going to be offered a
Well,
pay rate that they may.
and they may not be eligible for it. They may have to go
Exactly.
through the civil service process. So it's even like, if the town wanted them, the town may not be able to do it. County may say, nope, too bad, so sad. They've got to go through civil service.
See, that's been the fallacy
Right.
with some folks, but,
Right.
no, wait a minute.
Question in the back.
Well, about building a new police station, the village has assets that are already here that could be transferred to the town to offset some of the debt the village has. You don't have to build a new building. You don't have to get new dump trucks.
If the town wants to build it.
You don't have to get new front-end loaders. You
There-
don't have to get new police cars.
I can't speak to that. I can't, that's things that need to be worked out, and again, goes back to fairness, like who's paying what and how do you finance it? It definitely can happen where assets are sold to help pay for things that the town expense is going to occur as an expense, or it goes to the, or transferred directly. And I'll note this out. To be honest, well, if,
There's different forms of agreement. You can transfer it off.
correct, they could,
Well, we can
yeah,
give it, or
yes,
we can
yeah,
sell it.
yeah.
But if you sell it, you would, the reason
That's
that
right.
the village might think about selling this building or the senior center or other assets is to pay down the village legacy debt.
Pay down the debt that you all tell us about.
Go
ahead,
But what I'm
sir.
saying is you could transfer it, and if the town accepts the debt to pay off the building,
Absolutely.
work something out, that could be done.
Absolutely. One of the things that was
The town
done,
accepts the debt?
that was done
No,
to,
thank you.
that was done to a certain degree in the plan, or in the plan that was drafted, and it's not exhaustive. They did a pretty good job, but there would be more. You would want to go through and itemize every asset. I mean, so for example, villages will go through and they'll account for all of the chairs, like every asset itself.
Where's the savings? I'm not-
Well, that's again, to be determined.
Okay, you go.
But then figure out what to do. We'll go here and then we'll go there, yes.
Well, I have a couple questions. My name's Terry Carey. I wanted to ask, has it been your experience, have you ever seen where there's a dissolution and there is actually a raise in taxes for people across the board in the new area?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So the town, the village of Seneca Falls, is it the town of Seneca Falls? I should know the town's name. Their taxes went up. They were paying zero in taxes, but they created a town police department. Those town residents' taxes went up. That happens, there's no doubt about it. But for the village property owners, no, as a general no. Sometimes it's negligible, it can be really small, and that can occur in a couple of ways. And this is something where, so there have been a handful of village dissolutions where the dissolution was actually the final step in what was years of sharing services. And by that I mean the village turned over one service to the town, and then in a couple of years later turned over another service to the town, and then finally it said, what are we doing? The town's doing all the services. And when the village dissolved, the village property owners didn't save any money because they'd already turned the services over to the town. So in that context, the cost shift had occurred prior to, okay? It also can happen, the towns have some flexibility in how they impose the townwide tax. And some towns are more judicious in imposing the townwide tax. Some of the town officials don't really process that. And so that can vary too. The more that a town imposes the townwide tax, meaning they're taxing village property owners, when the village dissolves, that's a bigger benefit to the village property owners because all that huge subsidy goes away. And they're just paying for services that they get instead of paying for services they don't get. So you had a second question?
Yes, so not that I have to, I'm sure it's public record, I actually signed to put this up for a vote, the dissolution. So when the person who came to my house, they told me that my very first question was, why, I wouldn't want to dissolve the town if people were going to lose their jobs. Because these people live in my neighborhood and, and the police, they've always been so amazing. And I've had to call them a couple times because my mother-in-law recently passed away. So anyways, thank you. So I don't want to get emotional, but I feel terrible that I signed it based off that information that was given me. So what I'm hearing now, though, is that people will lose their jobs most likely if the town is dissolved. Is that correct?
I can't guarantee that. Some people are likely to lose their jobs.
In your experience, has there been towns or villages that have dissolved and all the employees are leaving?
I can't say, no, I don't believe, I can't think of, well, I shouldn't say that. There are some smaller villages where they didn't have a lot of employees. For example, there would be a village where they didn't have a police department, it was just water and sewer, and all those water and sewer people went over because the town didn't provide water and sewer. They didn't know what the hell to do. So of course they had to hire the village employees. But did they necessarily, they might have not hired the clerk because the clerk was full-time in the village and the town said, we don't need a full-time clerk. And the clerk's like, well, I need a full-time job. And they went somewhere else or something. So it's generally not everybody gets a job with the town.
Okay.
All right. Let the gentleman go. He has an issue.
Okay, thank you. Wade, I have a question. In the LaBerge study, they had a house valued at $250,000. That would be taxed on $232,000. You would have a $1,000 tax savings. Do you have any statistics that, excuse me, pull this down. If the house is, if you're paying less taxes, do you have any statistics on how much that affects the house values?
No.
House values go up because home buyers can afford to pay more.
So I know what you're saying there, right? Because that's true, and I'll point this out. So, like every $1,000 you spend in tax, depending on what the interest rate is, you can afford, $10,000 to $20,000 in an annual mortgage if you're getting a 30-year fixed, right? So it depends on what the interest rate is. If it's really low, like you can get more of.
You have no stats on how much property values increase.
And I know there was questions that were presented, I think, to both Dr. Parshall and Dr. Benjamin to that. I don't have any data, unfortunately. I don't. it's negligible.
You have.
Property taxes impact though to a certain degree though, it definitely does, because when you're looking at this and people buy a home, they're considering about what their monthly or annual expenses are gonna be, and part of that is not only the mortgage and interest payment on that mortgage, but your taxes, absolutely, so it can come in.
Just a quick comment. It's an interesting point. I'll add that on one of the flyers that was sent out, there's been these supposed information flyers where it says we're the number 4th and highest taxes. I would venture to say, being 4th and highest taxes, according to the flyers, property values in this community are probably at the highest they've ever been.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I don't think that has anything to do with taxes. Just happens to be with where we are with housing. So, just to be your point, it might not play a role at all.
Go up even higher.
Yep.
No, I'm saying,
That's my point.
no, I'm saying if we're the number 4th highest already, according to the flyer, property values are the highest they've ever been.
Okay.
Interest rates are the lowest they've ever been. You're not gonna see this again.
One,
In your lifetime.
wait,
Maybe mine.
one question here, and now that we have repeaters, and I went over here to, anyone new want to ask anything? No. So you asked the question, I know the fire department wants to come up. Wade, we're gonna end the meeting soon, if you would just.
No, very quickly, go ahead, last question and a couple things, yes.
Can you give us an insight or look back on some of the, like Seneca Falls? I mean, how's life there now? Is it mayhem? It's neither,
it was funny, because Dr. Parshall was like, oh, they're hamlets that are thriving and villages that are stagnant. I'm like, well, there are hamlets that are stagnant and villages that are thriving. It is not, you don't need a village government to exist. I'll say that. You don't need a town government to exist. It can help, however, right? I mean, there's pros and cons. It can give you, having an elected official, in one respect, to be the voice of the community and represent your specific interests, can be very powerful. And the one example I give all the time is the village of West Hampton Dunes, which is located on Long Island. It's actually the smallest population-wise. It's smallest population-wise because when they did the census, nobody was there. It's got like several hundred homes, but they're all their second homes, right? But they incorporated, the reason they incorporated is because they were getting, no kids here, right? They were getting screwed over by the Army Corps of Engineers about sand erosion project, and the town was not responsive to their needs. And they tried to fight them legally, but they only had a handful of property owners who were footing the bill for the litigation. So they formed the village, and next thing you know, they got a mayor. They had a mayor who could go to the governor. They had a mayor who could talk to the senator and their congressman and say, hey, literally our houses are floating out to the ocean because the Army Corps of Engineers is giving us the short end of the stick. So it depends in that respect, right? Having that voice can be helpful. Is it necessary? No, but that's a decision that you have to make. I will very quickly, if you're interested in cost savings, couple of other issues to it. Shared services, obviously. To the extent, and this is one of the things, I already gave the example of communities that kind of evolved into dissolving the village. And the reason if you shared services over time, we're talking about a lot of complicated issues all at once. Police, fire, water, and sewer. Those are multi-million-dollar decisions. Well, okay, maybe we just want to share a police department. Let's do that. I mean, I know there have been challenges with that. You've had that discussion, but that maybe is a red flag. Maybe we want to have a village, a fire district, and have the town run. You can extend town fire districts into village boundaries. So maybe that's something you want to do. So there are ways to look at this over time instead of dealing with this all in one fell swoop and having it be a big issue. Village annexation. Does the Fort Montgomery, do they want services? Do they take advantage of services in the village? Maybe you should have that discussion. What is fair? Do you have, in economic terms, anybody know what the economic terms are? Do we have any economists here? When somebody gets the benefit of your community without paying the expense or cost of it? It's called a free rider. It's called a free rider. It's a positive externality. They get the benefit but don't pay the cost. And that's a problem. That's a huge problem writ large in the state of New York. It's not just something, I'm going to you too. It's not just something here in the town of Highlands or the village of Highland Falls, right? So think about that. People talk about coterminous town village. It doesn't make sense. The only reason it would make sense is that you create a town that matches the current village boundaries. What would that benefit you, village property owners? How would that benefit you? Well, you wouldn't be paying town taxes anymore.
They figure out a way.
So, but that's only the benefit. In essence, it creates a city because you're not considered parts of the town. Now, we have many villages that want to be cities, but the last time, who knows when the last time we had a city created in the state of New York? Anybody want to guess? 1942, when the village of Rye became the city of Rye. How do you become a city? However, you become a city by going with your hat in your hand to the state legislature and say, please, sir, can I become a city? And the state legislature says, no, we don't want to create any more cities. So again, the state is part of the problem in that respect. Examine your town taxes, I mentioned that. And finally, I mean, if you're going to have a reduction in services, you could do that now without dissolving and save yourself some money. So that's it. I'll stick around and answer any questions.
I want you to stay around. And, is the chief over there?
Yep.
Okay, if he could come up. And you have one last question, Harvey. I'm going to get in trouble here.
This is very simple, on the
Yeah, I
fly,
know,
the
but-
last slide that came out. The last thing is, did you know that Highland Falls voters have 58% representation in the town when Highland Falls, Fort Montgomery, and West Point voters are considered? The next bullet point says Highland Falls voters have an even greater representation of 71% when Highland Falls and Fort Montgomery represented. What happened to West Point? Did they disappear?
I don't know about those flyers. I can't.
Well, let me explain that. There's 2,400 Highland Falls registered voters, and there's 900 Fort Montgomery registered voters. So that's a 3-to-1 representation on the town board, in the town. We have a predominance of say as Highland Falls resident in the town board. Tomorrow, there's an election. 4 of the 6 seats are 4 of those people running of the 6 seats.
3.
Costa, 3, Perry. Perry lives in the village.
There's 3 seats, 2 council and 1
Well,
supervisor.
I'm counting the supervisor. There are 6 seats that are gonna be on for up to, there are 6 people running for 3 seats.
Right.
Okay?
That's right.
So 4 of those 6 people are actually from Highland Falls. So if you actually vote all of them, your representation on the town board is 100%.
Good.
Okay? So that's what it says. 71%, you have a predominance of say as a Highland Falls resident on the town board. So I don't understand this, people talking about the town as if they're way out there. There's 3,800, there's 6 buildings away from the village seat. The town seat is 6 buildings away from the village seat. They're not far away. They're not a completely different entity, you know?
Okay,
And we
Chief.
have a predominance of say.
Okay,
That's what
Chief.
it means.
Chief, introduce yourself, Chief of the Highland Falls Fire Department.
Hi, my name is Steve Suarez. I'm the chief of the Highland Falls Fire Department, as the mayor just noted. We prepared a statement with some facts. Wade touched on a lot of those, but I'm going to just read this anyway. Monday, November 8th, the voters in the village of Highland Falls will be asked if the village should dissolve. We share the following facts regarding how dissolution will affect Highland Falls Fire Department and fire protection in the village. The village of Highland Falls Fire Department is a village department just like the police, water, sewer, streets, DPW. Members of the department are essentially employees of the village. And dissolution will end the department's 99 years of service to the village. This September will be marking our 100th year of providing fire service in the village. The village owns the apparatus, as was pointed out, the equipment and the gear. This can potentially be liquidated to pay down the village debt. There's no certain choice how fire protection will be provided to the former village in the event of dissolution. While villages routinely provide fire protection directly to their residents, towns are not able to by New York state law. There are at least three viable options for fire protection for the former village in the event of dissolution. We feel each is at very least financially less advantageous for village residents. The Labarge Group Study preferred option is to form a fire district. This results in forming another layer of government, as was pointed out by Wade. The fire districts are similar to school districts with an elected board of fire commissioners to govern the districts. While citizens elect the commissioners and vote on referendums historically, fire districts have very low voter turnout and citizen participation. As a result, the cost of fire protection per capita is greater because the district does not benefit from the economies of scale from being part of a municipality and being a single-role government body. The formation of the Highland Falls Fire District adds an additional layer of government and increases spending on fire protection. Another option is forming a fire protection district and contracting for protection of the district. This could be either with the current volunteer organization or another group. This option leaves the town and citizens with little input or oversight. If the town chooses to contract with an outside district for fire protection, the response times would not be adequate for the former village. Recruitment and retention is one of the biggest challenges for volunteer fire services nationwide, and Highland Falls is no different. The current length of service award program, which is called LOSAP, is integral to retaining members, and this will end if the village is dissolved. The ability to maintain our current staff in the event of dissolution and reorganization is a deep concern for our current members. Highland Falls Fire Department benefits greatly financially and operationally from its attachment to the village government. Village Hall staff assist with many of the administrative duties, including purchasing and compliance. The group purchasing of insurance and fuel helps keep the costs down. The village mechanic as well services our vehicles, small equipment, etc. Highland Falls Fire Department Incorporated has served the residents of the village with pride, like I said, for over 99 years, and we look forward to continuing our service to the community. Thank you.
Chief, there's a reason that on the side of the fire trucks, it says Pride of the Highlands. Make no mistake about it. It will continue.
That's it.
Brian?
Charlene Yale did the treat and trunk. It was excellent yesterday. Lots of kids, very happy. A lot of characters showed up. If you really looked out at the baseball field and saw all those families out, it was almost a reminder of the Norman Rockwell work. I give her a lot of credit, and on behalf of every board member, thank you for all the work you did. One more, I want to thank Lori Tortel for getting the cent of that grant for $14,500. Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank state officials and the LA group who represents us writing grants for another grant besides the one that Mr. Howard just spoke about, a $12,000 grant that represents a partnership between the Village of Highland Falls and Scenic Hudson. And it is the first phase to design and construct a passive park on the site being, some of us know as the ALO property. It's like 37 acres. In keeping with Scenic Hudson guidelines, the project will reflect that the property is suitable for passive recreation, using like hiking, enjoying the river views, bird watching, and learning about the site's natural and cultural history. So I thank all those, including the village clerk, for helping with this grant that we have received to develop the ALO property into some walking trails for this community. And so, there are a few of us, I'm going to end this tonight. There are a few of us who are glad that we only have another week to go. There'll be much to say after next Monday night. But I'll tell you what I have experienced. In 33 years of sitting at this counter, never have I seen what has happened to this community, by both sides. By both sides. Not by everyone, but by both sides. Never. I've been in some rough elections. Nothing like this. I will tell you with every ounce in me that the heart of the village of Highland Falls is broken. Make no mistake about it. It's broken. And it's going to take a long time to heal. But it will heal. I said to someone recently that it's going to take me 2 years. They said, "You're wrong. It's going to be much longer." But we're going to do it. Either way, we're going to mend the heart of Highland Falls. Not me alone. I can't do anything alone. But together we can. Doesn't matter where you fall on this vote. The heart has to be healed. Don't think if it's a no vote Monday night or a yes vote, everything's okay the next day on Main Street, because it won't be. I pray that it will be, but it will not be. It's very, very, very sad. I'll take a motion to adjourn. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.